Hi, everyone. So I'm going to talk about politics. The shiver that just went through everyone's spine, that's what we need to fix. So I was born here in Chicago, but I was actually raised in Washington, D.C. I'm actually one of those rare and unusual creatures that actually came from this swamp. The challenge for me as a kid, politics was in the air, it was in the water, it was everywhere. It's sort of part of the city. It's really, truly, it feels like a one-company town. I was raised by a single mom. I was a scholarship kid who got an incredible opportunity to go to one of the strange and amazing DC prep schools. That's me in the middle with the messed up hair. What was great about this opportunity wasn't just that I got an amazing education, although that was big, was that the alums of my school, the political leaders of our country, came from where I came from. They were my friends' parents. What this meant for me is that I grew up feeling like politics was intensely personal. It was about me and my friends and the things I cared about. It was literally the kitchen tables I grew up around. This sense that I could both touch and reach and affect politics was something that I started with as a kid. 1 degree of separation from watching my friend's dad on C-SPAN. Back in 1984, when Tip O'Neill first said that all politics is local, local might have been a pretty good representation of what mattered most to us. But what he really meant is that all politics is personal, that the things that inspire and matter to me are unique to me, right? And this is exactly the view I had as a kid. The challenge is that not everybody gets that view. In fact, most of us don't get that view, right? This is one of the myriad reasons why diversity in leadership is so important. Not just because it leads to better ideas, but because it gives more people the sense that their leaders are close to them, they care about them, and that they're going to work for them. Over the last decade, I've had a pretty different view of politics. I've had a front row seat to the last couple of presidential election campaigns, and I've had to watch as this sense of closeness and proximity has gradually gotten wider and wider to a point now where most of us feel deeply, deeply estranged from our politics, right? We live in a world and in a country where our elected officials spend more time fundraising than they do governing. Over the last half a century, with the rise of what feels like a permanent, professional political class, it doesn't really feel like self-government. It feels like we are governed by others. And this sense of proximity and closeness has started to fall apart, right? We now live in a country where the DEA has been gutted by industry in the middle of an opioid crisis that is killing tens of thousands of Americans a year. We live in a country where bankers and insurers were given a payout by taxpayers with almost no strings attached, almost no requirement that they actually change their behavior. We live in a system with 2 political parties, both of which seem mostly interested in how to oppose each other. Right? The DNC's self-stated mission right now is to stop Trump. After spending 8 years railing against Senator McConnell for standing up the day after President Obama got inaugurated and saying that his primary responsibility was ensuring that President Obama didn't get a second term. I don't know what either of them are for. And we live in a country where we have leaders who are quitting their jobs and then discovering voices of opposition, Senator Corker and Senator Flake, voices of opposition to the degradation of our politics only after they've given up any power they have to do anything about it, right? This is a system where none of us feel represented. Most of us feel this incredible widening gap between us and the leaders that are supposed to be representing us. And we expect less and less from these leaders, and they've gradually lived down to our expectations. And so we feel uninspired and disheartened and cynical, and eventually we just check out. Despite all of this, I'm actually more optimistic about politics than I've ever been since I was a kid. And I'm either crazy, possible, or onto something. The challenge here is that we have to reimagine the whole idea of civic participation. This is not what I mean when I talk about participating in politics. Participation has been made hard and small and difficult. Our elected officials only ask us to participate in their power, in their campaigns. Voting and donating are rare behaviors. The habits that we have of withdrawing from politics, of contempt and disdain and need to be replaced by new habits, healthy habits that are going to heal us. And those habits, we can't build habits on rare behaviors like voting. It's not something we do very often. What we need to spend time on is imagining a world where we are active and engaged on the things that matter most to us all the time, as a regular thing, as something that we do as part of our regular life. This is the whole idea of self-government, was that we were supposed to be active participants in this process. We weren't supposed to just outsource it to a political class and then hope it turned out okay. The good news here is that we are, in fact, the biggest actors in the system, if we are active. That if we change our behavior, our approach, then the system changes. Our culture, our behavior changes the culture of politics. And so what if we took the first step? Not because it's our fault, not because this debacle is the fault of voters. I don't believe in blaming voters for bad choices. But because we're the most likely to take the first step. Right? What would we do differently if we decided to care? If we decided to take politics personally, the way it's supposed to? If we stopped saying, oh, that's just politics, and dismissing the things that offend and demean us? What would we do differently? First, I think we would demand to know and to help shape the people who represent us. We would engage with them not anonymously by sending emails or tweets or letters or phone calls. We'd show up in their offices. We'd make them look us in the eye. It is really hard to ignore someone or disdain them up close. And we would engage them in behaviors that aren't about campaign activities. Right? Campaigns are about the candidates. What we need is our leaders to care and think about us. So we need to talk to them about what we need and what our communities need from them. We'd start ignoring the political class. If there's a problem that you want to solve and there's an elected office that's a good opportunity for you to work on that problem, you should run for something. And when your friends tell you they want to run for something, stop telling them they're crazy. I know that's the first thing you say. Support them, help them, right? And stop waiting your turn. Ultimately, in the long run, curiosity and humility and an earnest desire to serve and to help are a lot more important than fundraising capacity and connections. We have to stop expecting politics to be sexy. A lot of the things that matter most, that are most likely to help us heal the system and make it more about us and the things we care about, again, aren't that sexy. They're things like campaign finance reform to help us rebalance the effects of money in politics. They're things like redistricting so that our elected officials can't choose their own voters. Things like government ethics reform so that the revolving door between government and industry stops skewing the incentives of government toward industry. And we need to use our voices all the time, not just as a tool of a campaign or a protest, but in support of the things that matter most to us in our communities. We have to share our opinions. We have to share real journalism about the things that matter to us in ways that don't allow haters and trolls to own the conversation about us and our communities and our country. What we're looking for here is participation as a habit. We need to replace the habits of resentment and contempt with good habits of being part of something, of standing up for the things that matter most to us and making them part of our daily lives. Imagine a country of hundreds of millions of engaged, inspired, active voters, people and citizens participating in overflowing local meetings where everybody there knew each other because they were all at the last meeting. There would never be an empty slot on a ballot, ever again. And our leaders would clamor to try to be the most honest and the most transparent because their grasp on power would be tenuous, like it should be. Imagine if everyone in this room could turn to your neighbor and share a story about something great in your community that you helped make happen. I bet if we change, our leaders will follow. And that might just be because we end up being the leaders, and that's fine. So if we think about the appalling, difficult, challenging game show, reality show of what Washington feels like right now, this reality TV show isn't going to get canceled because we don't watch. We have to fix it to change it. And this isn't just about the Trump administration. President Trump is just a long, a loud, slightly obnoxious warning at the end of a long process of erosion. And it's an alarm we have to heed. We are either going to be complicit by not engaging in the continued erosion of faith, or we are going to be a participant in rebuilding it. There is no opting out. And this first step forward, this is a moment of bravery. This is a moment of forgiveness. This is how we fix relationships. Anyone who's ever been in a relationship that wasn't working knows that this sense, this willingness to take the first step towards something better is a forgiveness that we do for ourselves, because we don't want to lead lives of resentment and anger. We want to be inspired by the things that matter to us, and we want our country to stick up for us. It's not sexy. It's not flashy. It's not about an app. It's about real, everyday participation in the things that matter to us. It's just citizenship. Thanks.